Hey, Laura here from the Unprofessional, and today I'm gonna make a really quick and easy flagstone and mulch garden path. So why flagstone and mulch? Good question, because that's what I have. Oftentimes, that is how I make my decisions. What I'm doing is I'm making a really small pass-through between my rain garden and my garden shed so that I can get to my compost bin. Prior to starting this project, I had a path, but it didn't have any defined barriers. And because it's on a slope bordering a rain garden, when the rain came down, it would wash out the path. Now I'm gonna fix this by redoing the path with flagstone stepping stones, and then I'm gonna contain the surrounding mulch with recycled border edging. My original path is pretty narrow, but because I have established plants on both sides, I'm just gonna use the existing template and build off of it for my new path. Now let's take a look at the materials that I used. Landscape fabric is really helpful to prevent weeds from growing into your path. I'm using edging material, even though I really don't like how it looks, it's fixing the problem of the path washing away. I cut 4 pieces of scrap wood to 20 inches, and that's the width of my path, and that's gonna help me make sure that I keep the width consistent. For this short path, I used 2 bags of paver base, and I used 3 bags of sand, but you'll see later that I ended up adding additional sand. For tools, I used a tape measure, a rubber mallet, a tamp, a shovel, and a wheelbarrow. And of course, the most important 2 materials, the flagstone and the mulch. I started by laying out the landscape fabric and making sure that it fit perfectly into my space. Later, you'll see me pull up the landscape fabric, but that's just because I needed to carve out a little bit more of the dirt. Next, I put edging on one side of the path. The reason I'm doing it this way is I need to start on one side, and this is the easiest side because it's the berm of my rain garden. Once I have this side attached, I'm going to use the 2x4s, the scrap wood that's measured at 20 inches, and I'm going to make sure that the other side of the path is consistently 20 inches across. If I have to carve out any dirt, I'm going to do it from the other side before I put the other edging in. Sure enough, it required me to carve out a little bit more dirt, and you see that I had to pull up the landscape fabric in order to do that. Then I put the fabric back down, and I put the other side of the edging up. At first, when you install this edging material, it looks kind of wavy, but as you add material to both sides, it straightens out. Now, I don't love the look of this fake edging material, but it does serve a purpose. And as my plants grow over and the mulch kind of settles in, I don't think I'm really gonna be able to notice it. Okay, now that I have my edges up and my landscape fabric laid down, I can take these out and I can start to lay my paver base, or it's kind of like a crushed rock gravel. And then on top of that, I am going to put down sand. I'm gonna tamp it, I'm gonna get it wet, and I'm gonna put my flagstone down. So, pretty easy. The nice thing about this kind of path is I don't have to worry that it slopes a little bit. If I was using brick or cobblestone, I would have to work a lot more on the leveling. But with a flagstone and mulch path, I really have to just focus on each individual piece of flagstone and make sure that that's somewhat level. I also like this material because it's permeable, and like I mentioned, this is at the edge of a rain garden, so it's nice to know that the water can still be absorbed into the ground. I made some minor adjustments to the edging as I worked just to kind of give it that straighter look. I didn't scrape the sand, but I did use one of my scrap 2x4s and just kind of leveled everything out before I tamped it and then sprayed it down. When I tried my first piece of flagstone, I feel like it's a little bit too low. So I kind of have a problem because I'm out of sand, but I do have a solution. The sandbox. I'm gonna rob sand from my kids' sandbox so that I have more sand for this, because I want the stones to be up a little bit higher. All right, let's be honest. I think I'm doing them a favor. Nobody wants to play in this gross sandbox anyways. Okay, minor setback. I think it was worth it. I added probably about 1 inch of sand, and I think it's gonna be about the right height now so that the edging doesn't look like it's too far up. I've retamped and I sprayed it, so I'm ready to lay my stones. A little trick anytime you're putting stones down into sand, if you draw like a little T right in the middle, that way when you wiggle in your stone, the dirt or the sand, whatever is your base, fills into the hole rather than builds up on the outside. So it just keeps you from having wiggly stones. So I'm gonna do that here, a T. It doesn't have to be that deep. I put the stone in, and then as I wiggle it, it gets really nice and firm, see? So that's just a trick. I am using a level on each piece of flagstone, although it's debatable if I really needed to. One thing I'm looking for is that it slopes down into the rain garden just so I don't have a lot of water pooling up on top of the flagstones. I eyeballed the space between each piece of flagstone and really just made sure that I had it evenly distributed between the start of the path and the end of the path. It rained the night that I installed this path, and so the next morning I noticed that some of the mulch settled in, so I just went back through and added a little bit more. I imagine I'll have to do that from time to time. All right, there you have it. My garden path is done. This was an easy weekend project you can do in about an hour, or maybe more, maybe like an afternoon. But all I have left to do is do some planting along the edges, and it will look like the rest of my garden. And as you can see, the path is already being utilized as a major construction site. Even with just a few plants added, the edging is already looking softer. I think it's blending in pretty nice with the rest of the landscape. Thanks for watching. This has been Laura from The Unprofessional. To see written instructions for this project and other DIY projects, visit my website, theunprofessional.com. And if you like this video, please don't forget to click the like button and subscribe.